My name is Bellamy Archer, and I should have recognized the warning signs the moment I returned from Tokyo. The International Biotech Summit had been everything I'd hoped for. Standing ovations, partnership proposals from 3 Fortune 500 companies, and a handshake deal with a Japanese pharmaceutical giant that could have changed everything. I'd spent the entire 14-hour flight rehearsing how I'd share the news with my team, imagining their faces when I told them we'd finally broken through. But when I pushed open the glass doors to our wing at Helix Innovations that Tuesday morning, my celebratory latte still warm in my hand, I found myself staring at something that didn't make sense. Empty desks. Bare walls. The awards we'd accumulated over 6 years. Gone. Our specialized equipment, the kind that takes months to calibrate and costs more than most people's houses, vanished. Even the ridiculous neon sign that spelled out Future Makers in pink and blue, a gag gift from our first product launch, had disappeared. Bell. The voice belonged to Roxanne, my lead engineer and the first person I'd hired when I joined Helix. She stood behind me with 2 coffee cups, her usual confident stride faltering as she processed what we were both seeing. "Where's everything?" Her question hung in the air, rhetorical and terrible. Before I could formulate an answer, the rest of my team began trickling in. Elias, our quantum computing specialist. Yuki, the biochemist who could make molecules dance. Camden, fresh from Caltech and already holding 2 provisional patents. Each face cycled through identical emotions. Confusion, disbelief, fury. "There has to be an explanation," I said, though my gut, honed by 15 years in corporate biotech, was screaming otherwise. The explanation arrived in the form of Leonard Fitzgerald, head of facilities, wearing the expression of someone executing orders they'd rather forget. His smile attempted sympathy but achieved only corporate detachment. "Bellamy. Welcome back. Heard Tokyo went brilliantly." He didn't pause for my response. "Small change while you were gone. Your team's been relocated to Building F. Everything's already moved, all set up for you." Building F. The forgotten annex where they stored deprecated equipment and filed away failed projects. The place careers went to suffocate quietly. "Relocated," I repeated, keeping my voice neutral. "And our previous space?" Leonard's relief at my calm was palpable. "New acquisition. Tremendous talent joining us. HR and the executive team are extremely excited about the innovative perspective she brings." "I look forward to meeting her," I lied smoothly. "Building F, you said?" "Through the courtyard, past the commissary, down the service stairs. You'll find it." As Leonard retreated, I turned to my team. "Let's see what they've prepared for us." The walk felt funereal. Through the courtyard's manicured gardens, past the commissary with its organic juice bar and artisanal coffee station, downstairs that smelled of industrial cleaning solution and resignation. Building F occupied the basement level of Helix's oldest structure, a converted warehouse from the company's early days. The space they'd relegated us to made my stomach clench. Flickering fluorescence buzzed overhead like dying insects. The walls wept condensation. Our laboratory was a repurposed storage room with exposed pipes and no windows, squeezed between the loading dock and the archives. I could hear trucks backing up on one side and the whir of document scanners on the other. Our equipment sat in haphazard piles, still partially crated. My team stood frozen in the doorway. "This is insane," Camden said flatly. "This is temporary," I corrected, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. "Let's get organized." As they reluctantly began unpacking, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the weekend's company emails. There, sent Friday at 6:47 p.m., timed perfectly for when I'd be unreachable at 35,000 feet. *, please welcome Tinsley Drake to the Helix family. As our new Director of Innovation Strategy, Tinsley brings fresh vision and transformative leadership to our R&D initiatives. She'll be launching her groundbreaking programs from our primary research facility. My facility. My lab. My team's home for 6 years. I stared at the concrete walls, at my brilliant team trying to salvage some dignity from this humiliation, and felt something cold and sharp crystallize in my mind. They wanted to play corporate politics? Fine. But they'd overlooked one critical detail in their reorganization scheme. The patent that powered 78% of Helix's market value. The gene sequencing algorithm that made our entire therapeutic pipeline possible. That patent bore my name. And the licensing agreement I'd negotiated when I joined had very specific provisions about usage rights, modification authority, and breach consequences. Provisions I was betting nobody in HR had bothered to read. I met Tinsley Drake 4 days later, though met is generous for what actually transpired. She swept into our basement dungeon at 2:15 p.m. with an entourage. Leonard from facilities, Philippa from HR, and CO Vincent Ashford himself. A man who hadn't visited actual research areas since his appointment 3 years ago. The staccato click of designer heels on concrete announced their arrival. Tinsley embodied everything corporate America fetishizes in innovation. 26 years old, Stanford MBA prominently featured on her LinkedIn, platinum hair styled in that expensive bohemian way, and a smile calculated to disarm. She wore an ivory pantsuit that would survive approximately 90 seconds in any legitimate laboratory, accessorized with jewelry that cost more than Camden's yearly rent. So this is mission control. Her voice carried that particular enthusiasm that signals complete dismissal. Her gaze swept our cramped quarters, our improvised equipment setup, my team in their practical clothes and exhausted faces. Her nose wrinkled slightly at the persistent smell of mildew we'd been battling with industrial fans. Vincent cleared his throat importantly. Tinsley wanted to tour all research operations. Get a comprehensive view. Tinsley, this is Bellamy Archer and her team. They handle our foundational work. Foundational work. The gene sequencing platform that generated $93 million in licensing revenue last quarter had been downgraded to foundational work. Wonderful. Tinsley extended a manicured hand that I shook with precisely calibrated professional courtesy. I've heard about your group. Must be so fulfilling maintaining the legacy systems while people like us pioneer the future. People like us. As if she and Vincent were cut from the same innovative cloth. We do what we can, I replied evenly. I understand you'll be launching new initiatives. What area of genetic therapy will you be focusing on? The question was a test. She failed spectacularly. Oh, disrupting the entire paradigm. Her hand waved vaguely. We're going to leverage AI synergies across multiple therapeutic verticals, really integrate blockchain solutions into genetic sequencing. Blockchain. In genetic sequencing. I heard Roxanne suppress a choking sound behind me. Blockchain, I repeated slowly. For DNA analysis. Exactly. She beamed as though I'd validated genius. Vincent says you're quite technically proficient for someone of your generation. I was 39, not 70. And I held 2 PhDs she apparently hadn't bothered to Google. Philippa jumped in with HR's trademark false enthusiasm. Tinsley's already transformed the workspace. You should see it. Meditation pods, a smoothie bar, desks that adjust automatically based on your circadian rhythms. Circadian adjusted desks, Elias muttered under his breath. That's definitely what genetic research needed. Vincent's expression tightened briefly, then refocused on me. Actually, Bellamy, we'll need you to prepare a comprehensive technical briefing for Tinsley by Thursday. She'll be presenting our Q2 innovations to the board and she needs to understand what do you call it? The baseline architecture. The proprietary gene sequencing algorithm, I corrected. The patented process underlying our entire product portfolio. Write that. He waved dismissively. Put together something accessible. Maybe PowerPoint with infographics. Tinsley learns best visually. I felt Camden tense beside me. That algorithm had consumed 3 years of my life to develop, another 2 to perfect. Explaining it to someone who thought blockchain belonged in genetic sequencing would be like teaching differential equations to someone struggling with multiplication. Of course, I said smoothly. Though the algorithm is rather intricate. Creating truly comprehensive training materials might take longer than a few days. Tinsley laughed, a crystalline sound that grated like broken glass. Oh, I'm sure it's not that complex. I mean, if you figured it out. She trailed off, the implication poisonous and clear. You're absolutely right, I agreed, smiling sharp enough to draw blood. Someone with your obvious expertise in blockchain genetic solutions will have no trouble with the mathematics. I'll include all the differential equations and matrix transformations. You're comfortable with nonlinear dynamics and eigenvalue decomposition, I assume. Her smile flickered momentarily. Of course. Vincent checked his Rolex. the universal signal of an executive who'd graced the peasants with sufficient time. Excellent. Tinsley, we should return. The interior designers are waiting to discuss the Innovation Lounge. Innovation Lounge? Roxanne couldn't contain herself. Philippa practically glowed. We're converting the old executive conference room into a cutting-edge creative space for Tinsley's team. VR stations, holographic displays, even a coffee program with a trained latte artist. The executive conference room. The one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. The one directly above the space my team used to occupy. As they prepared to leave, Tinsley turned back with practiced concern. Oh, Bellamy, I heard about the space situation. Such an unfortunate mix-up. But honestly, this environment seems more suitable for your type of work. Less distracting. Very authentic. Authentic. Like we were some kind of historical reenactment. After they left, trailing expensive perfume and entitlement, my team stood in stunned silence. Did she actually say blockchain genetic sequencing? Camden finally asked. She did. And Vincent wants her presenting our work to the board? Roxanne added, disbelief thick in her voice. He does. Yuki slammed her laptop shut. This is absurd. She doesn't understand the first thing about genetic therapy. She probably thinks RNA is a boy band. I walked to my desk, a rickety piece that wobbled whenever I typed, and pulled out my personal laptop, the one not connected to company networks. I opened a folder I hadn't accessed in years. Original patent documentation, licensing agreements, the clauses I'd insisted on when I was younger and paranoid and convinced someone would try to steal my work. Turns out young Bellamy was smarter than I'd credited her for. What do we do? Camden asked. I pulled up the clause about third-party access and unauthorized technology transfer, feeling my pulse steady as I read the familiar legal language. We give her exactly what she requested, I said, looking at each team member in turn. A complete technical briefing on the gene sequencing algorithm. Every equation, every transformation, every single dependency and requirement. Roxanne caught on first, a slow smile spreading. Including all the proprietary modules. Especially those. But she won't understand any of it, Camden protested. No, I agreed, highlighting the section about unauthorized technology disclosure. She won't. But she'll pretend she does. And when she presents it to the board, when she claims ownership of innovations she can't even explain. Yuki picked up the thread, grinning. She'll engineer her own destruction. Blockchain genetic sequencing, Elias muttered, shaking his head. Let's see her disrupt her way out of this catastrophe. Building a team isn't about collecting impressive resumes or accumulating LinkedIn connections. It's about finding people whose jagged edges fit together with yours to create something unbreakable. Over 6 years at Helix, I'd assembled exactly that. Roxanne Winters was my first hire, poached from Genentech's immunology division where she'd been languishing despite holding 4 patents in adaptive therapeutics. At 6 feet tall with shoulders that suggested she could bench press me, she looked like she'd wandered into the wrong building. But those same powerful hands could perform microsurgery on genetic markers with precision that bordered on supernatural. When I'd called her at midnight with the Helix offer, she'd asked only one question. Will they let us actually do science, or is it all corporate theater? I'd promised her the former. She'd accepted before I finished talking. Elias Park came next, stolen from MIT's quantum computing lab. Brilliant, blunt, and constitutionally incapable of corporate politeness. He'd been written up twice for communication issues, which translated to refusing to simplify his ideas for executives who thought they understood technology because they owned an Apple Watch. I'd offered him complete intellectual freedom and promised to handle all political nonsense. He'd signed the paperwork that afternoon. Camden Orozco was my wild card, fresh from Caltech with recommendations calling him unfocused and too theoretical. Translation: he saw connections others missed, could link disparate concepts in ways that seemed insane until suddenly they weren't. I'd found him at a recruiting event, ignored by the Google and Amazon recruiters because his GPA was only 3.8 instead of 4.0. Their metrics missed what I saw immediately: hunger and brilliance searching for a home. The others had similar stories. Yuki Tanaka, the biochemist who'd been relegated to quality control at her previous company because she'd rejected her supervisor's advances. Nathaniel Cross, the data scientist who'd been passed over for promotion 6 times because he was too quiet for client presentations. Imogen Shaw, the protein engineer who'd been told she asked too many inconvenient questions. Each of them had been discarded by the system, labeled difficult or inadequate or just not quite right. But I knew better. I'd been that person once, told I was too aggressive, too technical, too unwilling to play the game. So I'd built a team of misfits and given them something corporate America never would: respect and purpose. We'd worked 20-hour days together during product launches, shared Thai food at 4 a.m. while debugging code, celebrated breakthroughs with champagne in coffee mugs because we'd forgotten to buy glasses. When Yuki's father had been hospitalized, we'd all donated vacation days so she could fly home to Osaka. When Camden's student loans had threatened to crush him, I'd fought HR for an advance on his bonus. We weren't just colleagues. We were a unit forged in late nights and impossible deadlines and the shared understanding that we were building something that mattered. The gene sequencing algorithm that now powered Helix's entire pipeline, that had been born during one of our marathon sessions. Camden's theoretical framework meeting Roxanne's practical application, Elias's computational insights creating new pathways, all guided by my vision of what genetic therapy could become. The patent might have my name on it, a detail I'd insisted on before joining Helix, but the innovation belonged to all of us. Remember when Vincent called our first prototype cute? Roxanne asked one afternoon in our bunker, her voice cutting through my memories. She was calibrating equipment with unnecessary aggression. Said it was a nice science project, Elias added, not looking up from his workstation. Asked when we'd have something commercially viable. 5 weeks later we landed the NIH contract, Camden continued. Suddenly we weren't so cute anymore. No, I agreed. We became profitable, which in Vincent's world is the only metric that matters. Until someone younger and shinier appears, Yuki muttered. I watched my team work in our subterranean exile, noting the determined set of their shoulders despite our degraded circumstances. They could have left. Every one of them had standing offers from competitors. I knew because I'd helped negotiate better retention packages by leveraging those offers. Why haven't any of you jumped ship? I asked suddenly. Camden looked up, surprised. Are you kidding? And missed the show. What show? Nathaniel grinned. Come on, boss. We know you. You don't accept defeat gracefully. You're planning something. Same expression you had before you destroyed that VP who tried to steal credit for the cellular mapping project, Imogen added. I didn't destroy him, I protested. I simply ensured accurate attribution. He works at a community college in Nebraska now, Roxanne pointed out. Do they even have genetic research programs in Nebraska? Elias wondered aloud. Nathaniel set down his equipment and looked at me directly. We're here because you've protected us. Every single time. When the company tried to outsource Imogen's position to cut costs, you threatened to resign, Yuki added. When they wanted to pass Camden over for senior researcher because of optics, you raised absolute hell until they backed down. You hired me when nobody else would even interview me, Camden said quietly. Gave me a chance to prove theory could become reality. And most importantly, Roxanne said, her cynical armor cracking slightly, you've never taken credit for our work. Every patent filing, every publication, every presentation, our names are right there with yours. Do you know how rare that is? I did know. I'd spent a decade having my work attributed to male colleagues, my ideas presented as team efforts, where my name somehow got omitted. I'd sworn that when I had power I'd do better. Besides, Imogen added with a sharp smile, we want front row seats when you take down the blockchain princess. I'm not taking anyone down, I said carefully, aware that even in our bunker walls potentially had ears. I'm simply ensuring everyone understands the full complexity of our technology. Right? Nathaniel said, heavy with sarcasm. Just coincidence you've been reviewing patent law during every lunch break. And updating your LinkedIn connections, Camden added. And having coffee with that headhunter from Biosynth, Elias finished. I raised an eyebrow. You've been monitoring me. We're your team, Roxanne said simply. That's what we do. I looked around at these brilliant, loyal people who'd chosen to follow me into corporate exile rather than abandon ship. Who'd built something extraordinary with me and were now being treated like obsolete equipment. Hypothetically, I said slowly, If I were planning something, I'd need to know you were all protected. Your positions, your projects, your futures. Hypothetically, Roxanne replied, we'd trust you to handle it the way you always have. But also hypothetically, Camden added with a grin, we've all been backing up our work to personal drives. Just in case. And hypothetically, Elias said, I might have documented every single instance of our technology being accessed from IP addresses traceable to executive offices. With timestamps. Imogen pulled out a folder from under her keyboard. And completely hypothetically, here's documentation of every protocol violation in Tinsley's hiring and positioning. Philippa from HR gets very chatty after 3 glasses of wine. I stared at my team, my brilliant, devious, magnificent team. I said finally, Tinsley called us a small group working on foundational projects. She also said blockchain genetic sequencing, Nathaniel reminded us, maintaining a straight face. She did, I agreed, feeling the pieces of my plan click into place with satisfying precision. And in 2 days she's going to present our technology to the board. Our algorithms, our innovations, our 6 years of blood and sweat. But she doesn't understand any of it, Camden said. No. I smiled, and this time it was all teeth. She doesn't. But she's about to learn there's a profound difference between occupying someone's space and understanding what made it valuable. Roxanne cracked her knuckles. What do you need from us? Everything, I said. Every piece of documentation, every test result, every proof of concept. And I need it organized, verified, and legally airtight. Why? Yuki asked, though her grin suggested she already knew. Because when someone violates the terms of a patent license by sharing proprietary information with unauthorized personnel, the patent holder has certain rights. And when that patent holder happens to own the technology generating 78% of the company's revenue. Game over, Roxanne finished. Checkmate, I corrected. But first we need to let her make her move. The email arrived Wednesday at 11:23 a.m., flagged urgent with that red exclamation point Vincent loved to abuse. Asterisk Bellamy, change of plans. Board has accelerated their quarterly review. Tinsley will be presenting the Genetic Therapy Innovation Portfolio Friday at 3 p.m. Please ensure she has all necessary materials by end of business today. Asterisk. Today. They wanted 6 years of revolutionary work condensed into digestible chunks for someone who thought blockchain belonged in genetic sequencing. By close of business today. Boss, you seeing this? Elias called out, his laptop pinging with the CC. I see it, I replied, already drafting my response. Professional, accommodating, with just enough buried concerns to cover myself when everything collapsed. Asterisk Vincent. I'll compile the materials immediately. However, given the algorithm's complexity and its dependencies, I strongly recommend scheduling a technical walkthrough. The mathematical foundations alone require significant context. Should I also include the proprietary source code modules? Asterisk. His response arrived within minutes. Asterisk, just the highlights. Make it visual. Tinsley will handle the technical depth. Asterisk. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. By noon, I'd prepared the most comprehensive technical briefing of my career. Every equation, every dependency, every intricate component of the algorithm that had consumed years of my life. But I'd followed Vincent's instructions to the letter. I'd made it visual. Flowcharts with enough complexity to make your eyes bleed. Diagrams requiring 3 advanced degrees to interpret. And buried in slide 53 of 107, the critical dependency notice that our entire system relied on proprietary modules covered under my personal patent. This is sadistic, Roxanne said, reviewing a particularly dense slide about quantum probability matrices in protein folding predictions. This is exactly what they requested, I corrected. Complete technical documentation of our innovation portfolio. The presentation was delivered to Tinsley at 5:15 p.m., along with a helpful note. Asterisk, here's everything you need for Friday's board meeting. I've included all technical details as requested. Please let me know if you need clarification on any of the mathematical proofs or computational frameworks. Happy to schedule a walkthrough session. Asterisk. Thursday morning brought chaos. My phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Tinsley, panic barely contained beneath a veneer of authority. Bellamy, this presentation, It's not what I expected. Oh. I kept my voice neutral, concerned. Is something missing? No, there's too much. The board doesn't need all these equations and technical minutiae. I see. Vincent specifically requested all technical details. I have the email if you'd like to review it. Pause. Can you create a simplified version? Of course. Which aspects would you like simplified? The genetic pathway algorithms, the protein folding mathematics, the quantum probability frameworks. All of it. Make it executive friendly. I understand. However, the board specifically requested a technical deep dive after our competitor questioned our methodology. They'll likely ask detailed implementation questions. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll handle the questions. Of course. Should I remove the proprietary module documentation as well? I know you haven't signed the NDA addendum for that access level yet. The what? The non-disclosure addendum for patent-protected proprietary modules. Legal requires it for anyone accessing the core algorithm. Philippa should have covered it during your onboarding. She hung up. By Thursday afternoon, the entire executive floor was in crisis mode. I could tell from the urgent meeting requests cascading through my inbox, the parade of legal personnel, and Philippa from HR practically sprinting past our bunker at 3:30 p.m. Camden looked up from his workstation. The warning signs are everywhere. What warnings? I asked innocently, focusing on my code review. At 4:45 p.m., Vincent himself appeared in our doorway, something that hadn't happened since our exile to the basement. His face was red, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. Bellamy, we need to talk. Of course. Should I come to your office? No. Here is fine. He glanced around our cramped space with barely concealed disgust. About tomorrow's presentation. Is there an issue? Tinsley feels the technical documentation is too dense. I see. Would you like me to present instead? I know the material can be challenging for someone without a technical background. His jaw tightened. Tinsley is perfectly capable. We just need a more streamlined version. Absolutely. Should I create something similar to what marketing uses? Lots of buzzwords, minimal actual substance. That's not. He stopped, composed himself. We need something showcasing innovation without getting lost in minutiae. I understand. You want me to remove the technical substance from our technical presentation to the board. I want you to make it accessible. Of course. Though I should mention 3 board members have engineering pitches. Dr. Whitmore specifically requested mathematical proofs after the last meeting. Vincent's face transitioned from red to purple. Can you make it work? I'll do my best. Should I also prepare backup slides in case the board asks about actual implementation? I'd hate for Tinsley to be caught off guard by technical questions. That won't be necessary. If you're certain. Though perhaps I should attend as technical support in case clarification is needed. No. The word came out sharp. Final. Tinsley will handle it. After he left, Roxanne spun in her chair. He knows she's going to crash spectacularly. He suspects, I corrected. But his ego won't let him admit he hired someone completely unqualified. So what now? Elias asked. I pulled up the revised presentation I'd already prepared. One that looked simplified but actually contained even more technical landmines. Every simplified diagram had footnotes referencing complex mathematics. Every executive summary contained terminology requiring extensive explanation. Now, I said, hitting send on the new version, we give them exactly what they asked for. A presentation that appears accessible but requires deep technical knowledge to actually present. Friday at 2:15 p.m. I received another call. Philippa from HR this time, her voice tight with stress. Bellamy, we need you in conference room C. I thought Tinsley was presenting in the main boardroom. There's been a development. Please come immediately. I stood, straightening my blazer. Not designer but impeccably tailored. Showtime. My team stood as well, ready to follow. Just me, I said, though I was touched by their loyalty. But keep your phones on. As I walked toward the elevator, I felt the weight of the flash drive in my pocket. The one containing every email, every time-stamped access log, every piece of evidence showing unauthorized access to proprietary technology. The one containing proof that Helix had violated my patent license terms. The one that would change everything. Conference room C was packed. Board members, legal team, Vincent, Philippa, and at the center, Tinsley looking like she'd been crying. Her perfect makeup was smudged, her confident posture deflated. Bellamy. Dr. Whitmore, the board's technical advisor, stood as I entered. We need to discuss the genetic therapy presentation. Of course. Is there a problem? Tinsley seems to be experiencing difficulty with some technical aspects. I looked at Tinsley with practiced concern. Oh no. Which parts are causing trouble? The quantum matrices, the probability frameworks, or the proprietary module integration? She glared at me with pure, undiluted hatred. Dr. Whitmore cleared his throat. Actually, we're struggling to understand how someone could present technology they don't comprehend. More concerning is the legal notification we received 90 minutes ago. I tilted my head. Legal notification? Vincent stood abruptly. Don't play games, Bellamy. Your attorney contacted us about patent violations. Ah, I said, pulling out the flash drive. Yes, that would be about the unauthorized access to proprietary technology. Should we discuss that now, or would you prefer to continue with Tinsley's presentation first? The room erupted. The chaos lasted exactly 45 seconds before Dr. Whitmore's voice cut through like a scalpel. Everyone sit. Now. The authority in his tone broke no argument. Board members settled back into chairs. Vincent's blustering ceased. Even Tinsley's theatrical sniffling quieted. I remained standing, waiting to be invited to sit. Power dynamics were everything in moments like these. Ms. Archer, please take a seat. Dr. Whitmore gestured to the chair directly across from him. Not at the foot of the table where employees usually sat during board meetings, but at the center. The power position. Before we discuss legal notifications, he continued, his gray eyes never leaving mine, I'd like to understand something. Tinsley, can you explain the basic principle behind the gene sequencing algorithm? Tinsley straightened, her confidence attempting a comeback. Of course. It's about leveraging genetic markers to create blockchain pathways that enable AI-driven therapeutic integration. Stop. Dr. Whitmore's hand went up. Bellamy, same question. The algorithm maps genetic sequences by analyzing nucleotide patterns at the molecular level, converting biological data into computational matrices that can predict and replicate protein folding pathways. The quantum probability framework isn't about actual quantum mechanics. It's a mathematical model accounting for uncertainty principles in genetic expression patterns. Thank you. He turned to Vincent. Would you care to explain why someone who doesn't understand our core technology is presenting it to the board? Vincent's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Tinsley brings fresh perspective, he finally managed. Fresh perspective on technology she can't comprehend? Dr. Eleanor Young, the board's CFO, interjected. Vincent, we generate 93 million quarterly from this algorithm. You're telling me you put someone who thinks blockchain belongs in genetic sequencing in charge of it? I pulled out my laptop, connecting it to the room's display system. If I may, I'd like to clarify the situation. The first slide appeared, a timeline. December 12th, 8 years ago ***, I developed the gene sequencing algorithm independently 2 years before joining Helix. Patent filed and granted in my name personally. February 8th, 6 years ago ***, I joined Helix with an exclusive licensing agreement. The company could use my patent with specific conditions. Condition 1 ***, any modifications to the core algorithm require my written approval. Condition 2 ***, access to proprietary modules is limited to personnel I personally authorize. Condition 3 ** violation of these terms results in immediate license revocation with a 30-day cure period. The screen filled with access logs. Over the past 9 days, someone with Tinsley's credentials accessed the proprietary modules 23 times. She was never authorized. This constitutes a breach of contract. Philippa went pale. We didn't know. You didn't read, I corrected. The licensing agreement is part of my employment contract. Pages 67 through 84. Furthermore, 4 days ago, Tinsley shared technical documentation with an external consultant. I displayed the email trail. A consultant who happens to work for our primary competitor, Biosynth Corporation. The room erupted again. This time, Dr. Whitmore let it run its course while he studied the evidence on screen. Tinsley stood, her face flushed. That's not. I was just getting a second opinion. I needed help understanding. You shared proprietary technology with a competitor because you couldn't understand it yourself? Dr. Yang's voice could have frozen nitrogen. Vincent, what exactly were her qualifications for this position? Vincent fumbled with his tablet. She had excellent recommendations. Innovative ideas about workplace transformation. Was she qualified to handle genetic therapy technology? Dr. Whitmore pressed. She brought other strengths. Answer the question. Vincent's shoulders slumped. No. I clicked to the next slide. A letter from my attorney. As of noon today, I've initiated license revocation procedures. Helix has 30 days to cure the breach. This means removing all unauthorized personnel from access to the technology, paying the specified penalties, and, I paused for effect, restoring my team to appropriate facilities with full resources as specified in Section 7.2 of the agreement. Patent holder must be provided with adequate resources to maintain and develop the licensed technology. This is extortion, Vincent exploded. This is contract law, I replied calmly. You relocated my team to a basement storage facility while giving our workspace to someone unqualified to understand our work. That alone could be considered failure to provide adequate resources. Dr. Whitmore stood. How much is the penalty? I smiled. 8 million for the breach, plus 2 million per day if the cure period expires without resolution. And if we don't agree? Vincent demanded. Then in 30 days Helix loses the right to use the gene sequencing algorithm entirely. Every product running on it becomes illegal to sell. Stock price tanks. Company valuation drops by roughly 78% overnight. The final slide showed a competing offer. Alternatively, Biosynth has offered me a position as Executive Director of Genetic Research with my entire team, full patent rights, and a 55% increase in compensation. They're particularly interested in the new developments we've been working on, developments that legally have never been Helix property because they were created using my original patent as the foundation. Tinsley sank into her chair. I didn't